She was scrubbing dishes in a closed kitchen at 2 a.m., hands raw, eyes burning, when a man in a tailored suit stepped through the back door, holding his daughter's backpack. "Why are you still here?" he asked gently. She froze, then whispered, "Because if I go home, they'll eat my food too." The millionaire single dad didn't say a word, but what he did next would shake the entire town. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. The clatter of a broken dish echoed through the empty diner. Ellie flinched. Not because of the sound, but because it meant more hours added to her debt. A debt she never signed for. "Pick it up," barked Randy, the manager, flicking ashes into his mug. "And maybe don't break plates next time if you want to keep eating here for free." She nodded, silent. 18 hours into her shift, and not a single dollar in pay. Her apron was damp, her fingers numb. Outside, a luxury SUV slowed at the red light. Inside, Mason Cole, 40, self-made millionaire, single father and CEO of Coltech, sat in silence as his daughter, 8-year-old Madison, looked up from her sketchbook. "That's the girl from the school cafeteria," Madison said. "She helped me clean the paint off my shoes." Mason glanced toward the diner window. There she was. Same girl. Exhausted, dirty apron, but with eyes that carried something familiar, something he saw in the mirror after his wife died. Quiet desperation. He made a U-turn. Back inside, Ellie was folding rags when the door jingled. "We're closed," Randy yelled without looking. But Ellie turned. The man standing there didn't belong. His coat was dry cleaned, his posture composed, his eyes sharp but kind. "I just need a moment," Mason said, walking straight toward Ellie. "You dropped something." He held out a crumpled piece of notebook paper. Her heart stopped. It was the sketch Madison had drawn earlier, a messy rocket ship with 3 stick figures. She must have tucked it into her apron after cleaning the art table. "Madison's my daughter," Mason said. "She told me what you did for her." Ellie reached for the paper, hand trembling. It was nothing. Just paint. "You're working now?" he asked, scanning the dark kitchen. "Technically," she muttered. Randy stood, already red. "Look, she's got dishes to finish." Mason raised a hand. "I wasn't talking to you." Silence. Ellie glanced between them. "It's fine. I need this job." Mason stared at her for a moment longer, then asked softly, "Are they paying you?" Her silence said everything. He nodded once, then reached into his coat. "What's your full name?" "Ellie Carter." He pulled out a sleek card. "Call this number tomorrow. Say your name. I'll handle the rest." And just like that, he left. Randy snorted. "Big shot, huh? You think someone like him cares?" But the next morning, when the police arrived, Ellie realized he wasn't joking. Ellie didn't sleep, not because she couldn't, but because something inside her refused to. The words, "Call this number. I'll handle the rest," echoed in her mind like a promise wrapped in thunder. When the sun cracked through her attic window, she stood barefoot in the corner kitchen she shared with 2 other tenants, one of whom had already eaten the bread she bought last night. Her hands still smelled like dish soap, her legs ached, her pride long gone. But somewhere under all that, there was a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years, hope. She dialed the number. "Coltech private line," a voice answered. Crisp, female, polished. Ellie cleared her throat. My name's Ellie Carter. He told me to call." A pause, then, "Yes, you're expected. Do you have transportation?" "No." "Sending a car. 10 minutes." She stood frozen, until a sleek black SUV rolled up to the curb like something from a movie. A uniformed driver stepped out and opened the door. "Miss Carter." That alone was enough to almost break her. No one had said "miss" anything to her in years. The elevator ride to the 41st floor of the Coltech Tower felt unreal. Ellie was still wearing her worn jeans, her hair in a loose ponytail. She looked like a broke waitress who wandered into a Fortune 500 building by mistake. But when the doors opened, Mason Cole was already standing there. Coffee in one hand, the morning sun backlighting his frame. No guards, no assistant, just him. "Glad you came," he said simply. Ellie stepped out slowly. "I didn't have much to lose." Mason smiled. "You have no idea how wrong you are." He led her into a minimalist boardroom. On the table, a folder with her name on it. Inside, a formal employment contract with benefits, housing assistance, and a salary that made her knees weak. She looked up, stunned. This can't be right. I don't even have a degree." "I don't need degrees. I need loyalty, grit, someone who doesn't run when things get ugly." He sipped his coffee. "You stayed scrubbing dishes until 2 a.m. for free. That tells me more than any resume ever could." She blinked hard, trying not to cry. "Why are you doing this?" Mason's face grew quiet. "Because someone once did the same for me, and I never forgot it." A beat of silence. Ellie looked down at the contract. She didn't have a pen, but Mason already placed one beside it. "I'm not asking for your past," he said. "I'm offering you a future." Her fingers trembled as she reached for the pen, then stopped. "What about the diner? That manager, Randy, he'll ruin me." Mason's expression darkened just slightly. "That's already handled." Across town, Randy was still half asleep when code enforcement officers marched in, followed by Labor Department agents. In minutes, the diner was shut down for violations he could barely pronounce. As Randy was handcuffed and escorted out, one officer leaned in and whispered, "Maybe next time, don't make people work 18-hour shifts unpaid." And just like that, the empire of greasy plates and fear collapsed. Back at Coltech, Ellie signed the contract. The ink didn't just bind her to a new job, it bound her to a new life. "You start tomorrow," Mason said. "Oh, and dress warm. You're working in development." "Development?" she asked. He grinned. "You're going to help build something big." She raised an eyebrow. "Me? I don't know anything about tech." He stood, holding the door open. "You know people. That's more valuable than code." She stepped out with the folder clutched tight, heart pounding. She didn't know what was coming next, but for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of it. It had been only 6 days since Ellie started at Coltech, but to her, it felt like stepping through a one-way door out into a world she never knew existed. No dishes, no screaming managers, no unpaid labor. Now she wore a clean blazer. She had a badge. She had an ID with her photo printed on something other than crumpled paper. And each morning, someone smiled at her when she walked in. But none of that prepared her for what happened that Friday. It started normal. She reviewed logistics forms, ran errands between departments, and helped the software design team sort their prototype testing reports, even though she didn't understand a word of it. But during her lunch break, the elevator shuddered. Lights blinked, then stopped. Floor 38. No signal, no alarm, just her and Mason. He looked up from his phone. "You okay?" Yeah, Ellie said. No, I'm claustrophobic." Mason calmly removed his jacket and folded it into a cushion. "Sit. It's going to be a minute." She crouched beside him, back against the wall, trying not to panic. Silence. Then, out of nowhere, he said, My wife used to panic in elevators, too. Ellie blinked. You were married? Was, he said. She passed 3 years ago. Cancer. She felt her throat tighten. I'm sorry. He nodded once. She was the strong one. I just kept moving forward. Ellie hesitated, then said softly, I used to be strong too. He turned. What happened? She exhaled. They called it a debt arrangement. Said I owed them for the training. Said I broke a contract. But it was all fake. Just a way to trap girls like me, alone, broke, scared. His jaw tightened. That diner? She nodded. I slept in the pantry once, because I couldn't afford rent. They said it was my choice, that I agreed to it. Mason leaned forward, eyes sharper now. You ever report it? She laughed bitterly. To who? The system was built for them. People like me disappear before they're ever noticed. Silence again. Then Mason did something Ellie didn't expect. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a photo. Madison, his daughter, holding a sunflower. She drew a picture of you the other day. You were holding a cape. Ellie chuckled softly. A cape? Yeah. Said you looked like a superhero. She blinked, overcome. I'm not. You are to her, he said. And maybe that's enough. The elevator jerked back to life, rising again. When the doors opened, she stood slowly, but Mason caught her arm gently. You ever want real justice? He asked. You come to me. I'll give you more than a job. Later that night, she found something slid under her apartment door. A plain manila envelope. Inside, a list of names, documents, fake contracts, evidence. At the top, handwritten in sharp ink. Let's expose them. Together. M. Ellie locked the door behind her, heart thudding like a war drum in her chest. The manila folders sat on her kitchen table like a live wire. She hadn't even touched the papers again, but they were all she could think about. She didn't sleep. She didn't blink. She just stared at the words. Fake signatures, forged contracts, girls even younger than her. One was only 16, all listed under extended training agreements that made them volunteer staff for up to 9 months, without pay. Randy wasn't just a petty jerk with a power complex. He was running a system, and Ellie had been a cog in that machine. She pulled out the final document from the envelope. It was a city contract, sealed, signed, and awarded to the diner for providing rehabilitation employment to at-risk youth. It came with a 6-figure annual payout. He'd been getting paid to use them like that. Her hands clenched. Her breath shook. But then she saw something else. A signature. Her own. Ellie Carter. Signed at the bottom, except she had never signed that document. Mason had been right. This was fraud. This was slavery wrapped in legal paperwork. This was war. The next morning, she walked into Coltech, not in fear, but with a fire that trailed behind her. She went straight to Mason's office. He didn't say a word, just nodded toward the empty chair across from him. I want in, she said, all the way. He set down his pen. Are you sure? Because if we do this, it won't just destroy Randy. It'll burn everyone he's tied to, including people in City Hall. I don't care, she said. He took everything from me, and I'm not the only one. What followed were the most intense 2 weeks of Ellie's life. They brought in a private legal team. She gave statements, names, locations, even screenshots from a hidden group chat she'd once been added to by a waitress named Kira. Mason had his cybersecurity team extract metadata from every message. They built a case like an avalanche builds speed, slow, quiet, until nothing can stop it. One day, she walked into the break room and found a quiet young woman sitting alone. You're Ellie, right? The girl whispered. I saw you testify. Ellie nodded. The girl held up a trembling hand. I just wanted to say thank you. I thought I was crazy. I thought I made it all up. Ellie sat beside her, voice soft but solid. You're not crazy. You were just too strong for them to break. The press release hit exactly 19 days after Ellie made her call. City partnership with local diner terminated amid exploitation scandal. Multiple victims come forward as evidence surfaces of forced labor, forged contracts. CEO Mason Cole funds private legal action on behalf of survivor Ellie Carter. Her face wasn't shown, but her name was in every article. And so was Mason's. That night, Ellie stood on the rooftop of Coltech with a view that stretched across the glowing skyline. Wind in her hair, pulse steady. Mason joined her with 2 coffees in hand. I heard about the press, he said. You okay? I will be, she answered. He paused. You ever think about running something bigger than logistics? She raised a brow. Like what? Like community impact, outreach, building something that outlives both of us. Ellie looked down at the steaming coffee in her hands. I've never been in charge of anything. You already are, he said. People follow truth. You carry it like fire. But just when it seemed like justice had been served, a name appeared in the records no one had expected. One of the city council members involved? Mason's late wife's father, a man Ellie never even knew existed. The name stared back at them from the scanned document like a ghost come alive. Harold Green, city councilman, senior official on the Employment Oversight Board, and Mason's former father-in-law. Ellie dropped the folder. Her breath hitched. This has to be a mistake. Mason didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the paper like it had punched him in the ribs. It's not, he finally said. Harold was always careful, always polished. But this crosses a line. Why didn't you say anything? Ellie asked, voice sharp. Because I didn't know, he replied. After my wife died, we drifted. He didn't approve of how I raised Madison alone, said I was soft, that I should remarry within a year, for structure. Ellie swallowed. So he turned around and partnered with people who were enslaving girls? I don't know how deep he's in, Mason said, but if his signature is there, I need to confront him myself. No, Ellie said, standing. I'll go with you. The Green estate was a fortress disguised as a mansion. Gates, hedges, stone lions at the entry. The house reeked of old money and even older secrets. Harold Green opened the door in a robe, eyebrows arching when he saw Mason. Son, finally remember the old man? Mason's jaw tightened. I'm not here for tea. Harold's eyes flicked to Ellie. His gaze was cold, assessing. And this is? The girl you helped chain, Mason replied. We found your signature, Harold. You partnered with that diner. You funded it. There was a pause. Then, slowly, Harold smiled. You really don't understand how the world works, do you? Ellie stepped forward. No, you don't understand. That world, it's burning. Harold chuckled. You think people care? These girls, they were invisible, until you gave them a voice. That's the point, Ellie said. They have it now. And you? You're going to lose everything. He waved a dismissive hand. I've got 10 lawyers on speed dial, sweetheart. Mason stepped closer, his voice low and lethal. And I've got something better. Morality. You ever heard of it? Harold's smirk faltered. That night, Mason did what most wouldn't. He went public, a live stream, no script, no teleprompter. Just a father, a man, a citizen, and beside him, Ellie. They told the full story, The abuse, the false contracts, the councilman behind it. They didn't name Harold directly, but the internet connected the dots faster than a wildfire in a dry canyon. Justice for Ellie began trending. The next morning, 7 more women came forward. By evening, Harold Green had resigned, and by the end of the week, he was indicted. Ellie didn't cry. Not then. Not when the case closed. Not when she was offered a permanent leadership role in Coltech's new Human Rights Division. But she did cry the day she walked into her new apartment, furnished, safe, hers, and saw a single envelope on the kitchen table. Inside, a note, in Mason's handwriting. You came in carrying broken plates. Now you're carrying nations. M. And below it, a hand-drawn cape, Madison's art. Epilogue, 6 months later. At a youth empowerment summit in San Francisco, Ellie Carter stood in front of a packed audience. You all know my name now, she said. But you didn't 6 months ago. Back then, I was scrubbing dishes at 2 a.m. for free, too scared to speak, too tired to dream. She paused, scanning the faces. What changed wasn't luck. It wasn't charity. It was kindness. One man who saw me. One girl who drew me with a cape. And one promise. If we don't stand for the invisible, then we become part of the system that hides them. The room rose to their feet in applause. And in the front row, Mason watched quietly, with Madison on his lap, grinning. The dishwasher who once said nothing? Now she was the voice shaking boardrooms, and she never worked unpaid again, not for a single second.